Hello, everyone. Welcome to the For Competitors Only podcast. My name is Ben Mostaller. I am your host this evening. I'm joined by Yadek and D'Lo, and we welcome Zachary Weinberger of Clutch Points. We welcome you to our podcast. Thanks for jumping on. He is a Miami Heat reporter. We're going to discuss a lot of topics regarding the Heat, especially the trade deadline, which happened today, as well as the Miami's recent spike. It's been an issue. We talked last podcast about the terrible 7-game losing streak. Now we can at least be more positive, talk about winning 4 of the last 5 games. So first of all, Zach, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you doing this evening?
Doing really good. Obviously it's always an event talking about the Miami Heat. I was just saying before we started that, it's been an interesting season so far. But like you said, it wouldn't be a Miami Heat season without that. So excited to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump into things. Today is trade deadline day. It ended at 3 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon. Miami, they didn't do anything. Obviously, we got the trade a few weeks back with Terry Rozier for Kyle Lowry, but no crazy 2:55 p.m. trades for the Miami Heat. They stayed stagnant. And Zachary, I was looking at a tweet you said earlier, and I kind of had the same thing in mind. You talked about you thought Miami was going to stay stagnant. They were going to stay put, not really make any trades. They already had their trade a few weeks ago. Why did you think that? What was your thought behind that going into today?
It's just sort of been the trend, I guess, with Pat Riley and just what the moves have been the last couple of years, where it just they're kind of fine with the team that they have. And the success says that you should be fine with the team that you have, but you can always upgrade. It's funny because Jimmy said before the season during training camp that the East teams are loading up because of them, and it was kind of being facetious, but it's almost kind of true to kind of see what the Celtics and the Bucks and all these other moves that are being happening from the top teams in the East. And just like last season, and I said in that tweet, they're going to make more use, I think, of the buyout market instead of the trade deadline. Like you just said, they did their trade. They got Terry Rozier, which I think was a pretty good upgrade for them, and instead of Kyle Lowry. So I thought after that, it's like what I was thinking Dorian Finney-Smith from the Nets could be a good power forward to match with Bam there, but they were asking for 2 first-round picks, and they even rejected that. So it's like, what are we gonna give that's a little bit better than that if it's not Tyler Hero, which they would not do. They wanted like an all-star talent reportedly for him. So yeah, I just never thought they would have. But in terms of the buyout market, that seems more likely.
Yeah, D'Lo, I know you're going crazy over there. You kind of wanted the Heat to do something, I think, and as Heat fans, you see everybody else like that are getting trades and they're getting excited, but Miami again just staying put. Were you looking at somebody that you were hoping Miami would go after?
Um, I wouldn't say necessarily Miami was going after. I really was just thinking, granted, from how great he's played these couple of days, I was really just thinking about getting rid of Caleb Martin. Buddy Boy's gonna ask for a lot of money next season that I feel like we don't want to give him, which he's gonna get now, or walk for anything. So that's nice.
Yeah, how about you, Yadek? What were your thoughts on today's kind of quiet trade deadline?
Honestly, it's what I expect from Pat Riley, man. We don't usually go throughout the trade deadline. I think we're more of a like Zachary said, we go for buyouts. I've been looking at the buyout a little bit. You know who we have available, who we can actually get with the money that we have. I think one person that comes to mind, even though it's kind of hard to put it in our system because of the fact that we want to play Bam as a starter, is Drummond, Andre Drummond. I think it's a even though he's not as one of the biggest players, he's one of the best rebounding players in the NBA. I don't know if you remember when he started, when Vucevic was out in the Bulls, if anybody was catching on to that. He was, I think first game he got 24 or 25 rebounds. So I think something like that is needed in the team like us, since we're not as big as we want to be. Someone like Andre Drummond would be a good person to get on the buyout. That's really the only person that comes to mind that we can get. I think we're pretty good overall. I knew that the Terry Rozier, when we got him, it was going to take a while to adjust to it because, he's a scorer. But we have also Jimmy, we have Bam, we have Tyler that are also scorers. They were over 20 points a game, So even though we needed that, it was, I knew it was going to be a hard adjustment. So when I saw the losing streak that we was going through, I knew that it's just part of the process of getting everybody on board and knowing the roles that were going to be taken. Some people are going to have a dip in their point averages, and I don't think anybody in the Heat team really cares about that in the end of the day. I feel like it's all about, in the end of the day, is just to get that ring. So overall, yeah, only person that comes to mind is in the buyout market, which is, for me, I think getting someone big like Andre Drummond comes to mind right now.
Yeah, and you bring up Terry Rozier. If we think about guys that have to fit into their role when you're joining a new team, I think look at Harden. When he goes to LA, they started off terrible with him until he got into the groove of things and they got going. And Terry's really fitting into that role right now. I really like that. But going back to Zachary's point and why I didn't think they would make a move, I wasn't really thrilled with guys that were being seen as available by teams for Miami to really go after and what they might have to give up for that. Obviously, we had some second round picks that we could have given up, but ultimately there wasn't any big fish out in the sea that it was like, yep, Miami's got to go after it. The buyout market is a different story. Free agency coming up, a lot of big names that are available. So I was kind of happy that we didn't just jump out and try to give away some assets to grab somebody to work with the team, to accept we got Terry Rozier, a big name, a good point guard, and go from there. So now that we're kind of on the buyout talk, Zachary, who are you hearing that Miami could go after in the buyout market?
Yeah, it's funny because I released a piece earlier today about some of the candidates that he can go after. But like you said, in terms of the people that are available, it just seems like a lot of Heat fans are not going to be so thrilled about the people that are even out there, because even the people that are sort of higher names, they can't even get. Guys like Spencer Dinwiddie or Marcus Morris, or I think even a PJ Tucker, even though it was reported that he's going to end up staying with the Clippers. But even if he was bought out, the money just wouldn't work. It just deals with the new CBA that was in place, and the money just wouldn't work out. But guys like a Danilo Gallinari, who I wanted the Heat to get in back in 2020. He's 35 now, but he's 6'10". He could shoot from three. He's kind of a true power forward that the Heat really lack. I mean, usually they would start a Caleb Martin or a Haywood Highsmith at that position, and the Heat always look very small out there. So I wouldn't mind him. He's on Detroit. I don't know why Detroit would even want him to begin with. So I feel like that he could be a true candidate there. Speaking of Detroit, Killian Hayes was released. The reason why he just sort of piques my interest just to a little bit is because he's 22 years old. There's some talent. If there's a team that could really kind of develop him, it's Spoelstra in the Heat. So maybe it's sort of a buy low sort of opportunity there. And in terms of a big, Yadek mentioned Andre Drummond, who's a very interesting candidate as well. Robin Lopez is someone out there that's cheap and is a center. It seems like they rarely play Orlando Robinson and Thomas Bryant anyways, so who knows what they can do with them if they feel like Robin Lopez can add something. And he's going to get bought out by the Kings, which was what was reported. So again, it just seems like the buyout market is prime for these sort of players in the twilight career, years of their career, to sort of rejuvenate a little bit. That's exactly what happened with Kevin Love last season. I think I remember when Kevin Love was sort of acquired by the Heat, fans were just like, "Oh, he's old. He's not going to be the Timberwolves' Kevin Love anymore." But I would argue he's a very integral piece of that rotation right now. It seems like every time Bam comes out of the game, he comes right in over Thomas Bryant, over Orlando Robinson, obviously. So, but they also got a guy like Cody Zeller, right, who just did not pan out at all. So yeah, the buyout market is sort of it's a mix and match of people that you can get. But to me, a guy like Gallinari, Robin Lopez, if they want to take a chance at Killian Hayes, it could be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I know some other guys, that can't be, bought by the Heat are Joe Harris, Lowry apparently can't be as well, is what I'm hearing. Evan Fournier, guys like that, is guys that we really can't go after. But a name that's out there that Heat fans might recognize is Victor Oladipo. Obviously, he's had so much issues with injuries and having surgeries, and do you want to spend the money on a guy knowing that you're going to get an injury-prone player? And you hate to use that term, but it's kind of true for his career. Is Oladipo somebody that Miami might try to get, for a minimum contract or whatever they can get, just to take a risk on him?
I really wouldn't be surprised. I know a lot of fans would love to see the reunion just because every time Depot was healthy, he would have these spurts and people would be really excited. But like you said, like the fact of the reality is that he is an injury prone player and that you have to be a little careful. What I will say is that they have 14 guys on a standard roster contract, which means they have one spot open. So they could really use that for anything. And if they want to have Depot back, they could. Um, I don't want to say it's a waste of a spot. It just seems more like a I don't know, an emotional add-in. But if he's healthy, which he hasn't been for the last year and a half, just in that nature since he was injured in the playoffs, I should say. Um, so it can happen. The Heat always love to have those guys that are, that have been a part of the organization, made a lasting impact. Definitely within the locker room, he made an impact. So I can see that being the case. But I even feel like you can get guys that are just kind of ready to play at the moment rather than being injured and sort of waiting. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Yeah. D'Lo and Yedek, I mean, if you had to pick one guy to fill that roster spot, who would you select? I know, Yedek, you said that you would go with Andre Drummond. Out of all of those guys that we mentioned, is that who you'd still like the Heat to pick up with that last spot?
I think, honestly, what we need is we definitely need big men to get boards. As a small team, that's, I think, one of our main priorities. I think even in the finals, that was a big problem either when we were there. We just didn't have anyone to match up physically with a guy like Jokic, and that could still go down the line when it comes in the playoff time when we make it, when we have to go against the Embiids, the Giannis's, you know what I'm saying, even Brook Lopez, who's known to be effective in that team too. We need players to be able to match up, and I think we just need height. And I think Andre Drummond, even though he's not the most defensive made player, he's a man that could definitely get big and get boards and help us transition to get more offense, even get offensive rebounds for that too. He's known for that. I know he's not in his prime, but we could still make it work. And I feel like if he has an opportunity to be in a team like the Heat, I feel like that's even extra motivation to help us reach that next level and get back to the finals.
How about you, D'Lo? Where do you want the Heat to use that spot for?
God, it sucks we only have one more spot because I still truly think we need a power forward firstly, and we still need a backup big because I appreciate Kevin Love for everything he's doing, but as a backup center, it's not cutting it for me. I like the spacing, I like what he's doing. I just think we need a younger, more built body down low. But if anything, I'm thinking Thaddeus Young. I mean, I haven't watched enough film to know if he's a decent enough shooter or not to play next to Bam. But I do know he has a good work ethic. He's a sizable guy, built stocky, real nice, can switch if we need be. So I did see Thaddeus Young was available that I wouldn't be too opposed to making. That's really my main problem with this team right now is just size. We never, ever seem to size up well against any other team in the league. We really just get through with heart, grit, good three-point shooting. But, yeah, I don't think we'll go for a guard or some point like a Depot. I mean, I feel like Jay Rich has that backup spot filled, and we have so many guys that need the ball in general. I don't see us bringing another offensive player through. But yeah, I really like Thaddeus Young. I feel like he could do something special for us, size wise necessarily. I mean, if anything, at least just start next to Bam for 5 minutes. That's if anything.
Yeah, I mean, Bam really hasn't had too much help. Kevin Love is a different type of big. He plays that role. And you take a look at Thomas Bryant, who really hasn't done anything for Miami yet. And Zachary, I want to get your opinion. I mean, Orlando Robinson really hasn't been shown in that lineup at all or really given a chance. I know last year he had some really good spurts and he can shoot the ball if needed, but why have they not put trust in Orlando Robinson over guys like Bryant and Love?
Yeah, it's such a hard question because the thing is, when it comes to the sort of the pace of the games that have been played this season, they just really haven't found a use for him. And this was a guy that, I mean, when Bam was out, he was like starting games too this year. So it's kind of weird to go from a starting a center in for the team to basically 0 minutes in playing time, like not even a backup center or giving a little bit of time. They like to play small. I mean, that's kinda how it's been. Bam, and then afterwards, it's Kevin Love, but because even I thought before the season started that Thomas Bryant would be the backup center, the true backup center for Bam, and that has not been the case at all. Dead wrong on that. So, again, if there's one thing we know about Spo is that he's going to experiment in every type of way possible. So if Orlando Robinson plays 25 minutes next game, I probably wouldn't be surprised even though it's just you won't see it coming. But they just haven't found the use. He likes to have a big that can really stretch the floor, even if they can't shoot the three. Like Bam can't really shoot the three, but Kevin Love can. He likes those type of guys. So it's just it's a weird fit for guys like Orlando Robinson and Thomas Bryant because they really don't fit into the game plan at the moment unless there's a guy hurt. Um, so that's been one of the more perplexing issues about the Heat, especially because they have that open roster spot, but they just haven't used guys like him or Jamal Cain or RJ Hampton, guys that are two-way players as well. So that's been a very interesting question.
Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, even we go back years back, even to like Whiteside when Bam came around, who's really been a solid center? I mean, they put Bam there; he's undersized, but they thought Dwayne Dedman could be the answer, and really wasn't the answer. Now Thomas Bryant, not really the answer. Are they specifically looking for guys that can, come down the court like a Kevin Love and shoot that three ball and try to go kind of undersized because of that reason? Because the guys they kind of got as the backup centers really haven't been doing a great job or haven't been utilized as I'm sure they would like.
I think Spo likes it because it's funny you mentioned Whiteside because when you look at the stats, obviously Whiteside was productive, but Spo really wanted a fast-paced team, and every time Whiteside was out on the floor, they would be slow, But when Bam was out there, he's running back and forth, getting on defense, going on offense. He likes competitors and people like that. But the thing with the buyout market is that there's not a lot of players like that, because when we mention guys like Andre Drummond and Robin Lopez, they're not going to really up the pace of the team. If anything, they're going to slow them down in that second unit. So if there's one thing that Kevin Love has done well, even though at his age, has been keeping up with that pace. And whether it be throwing these long outlet passes so that he doesn't have to run up the court, or it's just shooting the three ball. So it's been very interesting. But I do think a guy like Thaddeus Young would be interesting for the Heat, as D'Lo said. But again, the buyout market, it's thin. There is players that can play immediately. Again, I like it. We've all been saying I think they need size. They look undermanned a lot of times out there. And to me, that's why I kind of like Gallinari, even at 35. I just think they need a 6'10" power forward, or they need someone comparable, and he kind of fits that. Even though the defense is not going to be stellar, but yeah, the bio market is so interesting because, like I said, they're not going to find a player like Bam. Maybe they want Orlando Robinson to kind of be like that to play more fast. So maybe it's more of a developmental thing.
Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the success of the Miami Heat in the last 5 games, winning 4 out of their 5. And that kind of started with a meeting that the team had, well, the players had, talking about pretty much we need to get this rolling. We got to stop playing like we have been. We got to break the streak. Zachary, do you know much about that meeting, who was involved, what it entailed? And in reality, since then, 4 out of 5. So something sparked or lit a fire during that meeting to cause them to come out and start performing.
Yeah, that's going to be looked back. I think by the end of the season, I'm not going to say that they're going to win the championship this year. What I will say is that they're going to look back at the record since that team meeting film session, and it's going to be talked about. Obviously, like you said, he won the last 4 or 5. Apparently, it was a very vulnerable time for the players. I remember Caleb Martin saying that it was, things were said that needed to be said. So people can interpret of what that means. I think that it was led by Jimmy and Bam, from what I know, and they basically just, they were truthful, they were candid, they were honest. And what's led to that team meeting has been, the power of positivity or friendship, which has been the joke in the Heat community, but it's kind of true. I mean, guys were not smiling or not having fun out there in that 7-game skid. And even in the loss to the Clippers, you can see the flow and the pep in their step when they were playing. So, I don't think that's coincidence at all. But it's like every time they play a game, they always mention how they're smiling out there and stuff like that, which to some people can be like, what do you mean smiling out there? It's a funny thing to say, but they've just been playing more to their strengths. Their goal is to allow teams to score under 100 points and score close to 120, which is what they've been doing. Because usually the bad offense would dictate the bad defense. Usually the defense is the strength. They would let the bad offense do that. But now it's, again, they're not letting the complementary side of things sort of dictate how they play. So to me, it's just more so playing to their strengths. I remember asking Jimmy about it. He says now they're back to playing the Miami Heat way of basketball. Plus, the whole story about Jimmy coasting in the beginning, and then this is usually the time where he starts to turn it up a bit. It's a funny argument, but we're kind of seeing that now. So the right time for everything. The thing is, they're 7th in the East, I think, at the moment. So it's going to be another probably hard road to like they did last year, but we'll see. Ever since that team meeting, though, it's been a different feel in that locker room for sure.
Yeah, just to give some stats here, in the 7-game losing streak, 101 points per game offensively, but giving up 118 points per game defensively, which is not the Heat way. In those 4 out of 5 games last played, winning 4 of those 5, 111 points per game offensively, and defensively only giving up 102. So a much better turnaround defensively. And again, it looks like they just have a pep in their step, maybe having fun. Jimmy Butler going kind of all in now, maybe putting his leg on the gas pedal a little bit sooner than he normally does, but playing knowing that, this team actually does go through me. I like to be unselfish and get my teammates involved, but at this point, it's win or not get in it. So we got to go. And that mentality seems to be working so far. D'Lo and Yadek, what have you seen in this winning streak that has just really gotten you thinking, all right, the Miami Heat are back? This is a little bit more of what we're used to seeing.
Funny enough, classic Heat Twitter, the power of friendship. It's just more enjoyable to watch them play now. Like during that 7-game skid, I watched every game, but it was definitely hard. Sometimes I didn't want to turn it on because it was honestly like a feeling in the morning when we won that first game. Like you knew something was different. You knew something was going to change because, like Zach said, there was no effort, there was no try. Guys weren't smiling. We weren't acting like we wanted to play Heat basketball. You could just see the lack of effort out there, just getting up and down the floor, getting back on defense. The shots we were taking, like we were just chucking up threes because why not? It's the easiest shot to do. But we're looking pretty fantastic now, especially out of these last 4 out of 5, which I didn't expect to be blowouts. Last year around this time we were just a clutch game magnet, so that's honestly just what I expect these days. But just guys coming on the floor and trying their best, and that's all we can ask them to do necessarily. The rotation hasn't even changed much. It's just putting the fire on the guys, getting them right, showing them the right path. just like that one meme says, this is the time where Jimmy ramps up his production, and no matter how much he tries to deny the playoff Jimmy thing, it's apparent, buddy. Yeah, we see you doing it right now. So as long as Jimmy drives his train forward and everybody follows behind, we're gonna be great.
Kind of like to piggyback off of what he said. In the end of the day, this is Jimmy's team. Even with the addition of Terry Rozier and everything like that, I think at first we didn't know who to give the ball mainly to. As you could tell, Jimmy wasn't really trying to get the ball as much. So as you could tell, lately he's been racking up more points, and even in the last game, he didn't have to rack up the most points. He was getting a triple double, doing everything else. Defense, getting I think 3 steals and 1 block, if I'm not mistaken. This is the type of player Jimmy Butler is, man. He this is the type of player he's gonna be in order for us to like move forward in this game and move forward and try to compete for a title. And I feel like I wasn't at that meeting, but I feel like someone had to tell him or something like that. Someone had to tell him that, hey man, this is your team. Did you forget or something? I know we got another guy, and he's able to do stuff too. He's able to score. He's able to pass. He's able to do all this stuff. This is your team, man, and we're only going as far as he wants to go in the end of the day. So we're just seeing in the last 5 games, we're just seeing what he can do, and I feel like everybody's just getting more used. The chemistry's getting better. Terry Rozier is still doing what he does best, being a great point guard, a scoring point guard too at best. Even though he's scoring, 14, 15, maybe to 20 points a game, he's getting his 6 to 8 assists a game still, being a productive point guard, feeding other people. The pick and roll with Bam is working like wonders right now, honestly. I think I read something online saying that he's the 3rd best pick and roll ball handler in the NBA with 1.11 points per possession. So I mean, like, that's, if I'm not mistaken, even on top of players like Luka and all that stuff. This is a team that is very very talented now, and they were talented before, but even more talented now. We have players that could do a lot, and there's players that are okay with being in the role, and still producing off the role, still benefiting from the roles that they're in. They're doing what they do best. Kevin Love, at an old age, still scoring. However, he still shooting the 3-ball perfectly, still doing those outlet passes. So this past 5 games, even though with that one loss, we held a team that scores over like 115 to 103, if I'm not mistaken, or 102, or one of those. So I think that's something that Spo said, that even with a loss like that, he's seeing the defense getting better. So is in the end of the day, our defense is gonna get better, I feel like, and our offense is gonna join with that. So honestly, the last 5 games were pretty. It was a pretty good game. Clippers are number 1 seed team now, so like we just gotta improve 1% every single day, and the rest will take care of itself, basically. So that's
Yeah, as a college basketball coach myself, one thing that I often see in players is you have your main guy or your main guys, and it seems like sometimes they rely so much on those guys to get going. If Jimmy's having a rough day, Bam's having a rough day, then the other guys just don't come alive. And we saw that production kind of go down. Bam was having a really, really rough time during that 7-game losing streak. Well, you weren't getting as much out of Tyler. Jimmy was capable, but really wasn't getting there. Now, during this 4 out of 5 game win streak, you have guys like Josh Richardson stepping up, Terry Rozier fitting into that role, Jimmy Butler going at it and saying, yeah, you know what, I do need to play better, and the guys will get better. We just saw what Tyler did. He looked like he was back to Tyler Hero type stuff. So I think in reality is that when they had that meeting, it's like, we got to come together as a team, and we got to put our foot on the gas, and because we're slipping, and we could slip really far, and we don't want that same road. We don't want to have to play in the play-in game. We want to at least be in the 6th seed, and I think ultimately they can go higher, especially with Joel Embiid, injury. I know they traded for Buddy Hield, and that team's going to be tough. The Knicks had a huge day for the trade deadline. They're going to be tough. Cleveland has looked phenomenal. The East is getting stronger, and Miami's realizing that, and I think they're going to step it up a notch, but definitely don't want to be in that play-in game. So, but that's pretty much what we wanted to cover this evening. Zachary, I kind of want to ask you a question though before we left. And last week we got into it a little bit with the rotation during the losing streak, maybe trying to switch things up. My opinion was, and I don't think Spo would do this, but we have better production when Tyler seems to be running that second unit, because he can take a lot of those shots and it could be his game. Whereas when he's in there with guys like Terry Rozier, even Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, a lot of those shots he's forcing up and taken away from guys like Jimmy and Bam that we need some production for as well. Is there any thought on, Tyler possibly dropping back to that sixth man to lead that second rotation where he can kind of be the primary guy?
You said it yourself. Spo is probably not going to do that, right? As much as listen, I thought about that as well. I just don't think they're going to do that. What they have been doing that's a little different, kind of in that way, is that usually Jimmy starts the game. Midway through the quarter, they take him out for a breather, and then they put it back in the second quarter. The past 2 games, it has not been like that. He starts the game, he gets a quick breather, and then he comes in and runs the second unit, which has been a very interesting change because he's basically becomes the facilitator at that moment. Um, it is going to be sort of an experiment with Terry Rozier in, because, as I think Yadek said, Terry Rozier is a 20-plus point per game scorer that's joining 3 other people that do the same thing. So a lot of mouths to feed. But at the end of the day, it is Butler's team. So where does that leave Tyler Hero? I remember he got a little frustrated, it seemed like, because he was saying that he had to sacrifice a bit and be a catch and shoot guy. Whatever they've done in that team meeting and in this sort of little winning stretch that they're in, they sort of figure out how to balance that out. The thing is, though, they're not facing the best competition except for the Clippers. But against the Spurs, the connection between Terry and Tyler was working pretty great. Spo likes to talk about that sort of relationship and is really adamant on that working. So I don't know if fans are going to love this. Prepare to see that probably for the rest of the season. I just don't see a way that he's going to put Tyler at the sixth man, and I don't know if Tyler would like that. Again, I think they're all committed to winning. So if that's what Spo thinks is going to be result of winning, I think Tyler would do it. But I have thought the same thing. But now in the second unit, you have guys like Jaime, who's back now, and Josh Richardson and Kevin Love and all these people. So if you're putting him in the second unit, it's probably going to take more time to experiment and to see where that goes. So I guess it's sort of a blessing and a curse to have that they have a lot of weapons, but now they're trying to see how they can best use them. But it is an interesting point because, again, this is something that I was thinking myself. I'm like, I wonder if Tyler would be best coming off of the bench, which to a lot of people it's a negative connotation, but he might average more than what he is coming off the bench. So it's a weird dichotomy there. But definitely an interesting one to say the least. But I think they're starting to now find a groove with each other to where he's not going to have to sacrifice too much and take like 15 threes a game, So it's something that we're probably going to see more polished throughout the season.
We'll see what happens. I know they're not going to give up or ever give up, which is why I love the Miami Heat and love that culture. This week we have a big game on Sunday against the Boston Celtics, trying to get a big win. Then, of course, the big game in football, the Super Bowl. Zachary, you have any picks for the Super Bowl this weekend?
I think we've all learned to probably not bet against Patrick Mahomes. Also, Taylor Swift's there, so they got to win, right? I mean, it just seems like it's inevitable at this point. But seriously, I mean, I don't know, beating Buffalo, beating Baltimore on the road, it's just sort of adding to the legacy. I mean, listen, it's coming from a Dolphins fan and a guy who's just hated Tom Brady since I was a kid. It's like if you can never bet against him, I think we're sort of seeing the same thing with Mahomes at this point. I'm gonna keep betting on him until I'm proven until proven otherwise. But it should be a really good game though.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to pick. D'Lo, who you going with?
I'll say, geez, but unmute me. I'm going for the Niners. My Ravens lost, so I am salty about that. So any opportunity for the Chiefs to fall, I'm there, buddy.
Yadek, who are you going with?
Man, just like Zach said, man, it's hard to bet on Mahomes, man. He's been doing it all, and he's still pretty young. As much as I don't want to bet against him, I mean, as much as I don't want to bet on him, I have to, man. He's just been doing so good, man. I've been watching a lot of football recently in the recent years, so I know what he's capable of. So just give me the Chiefs, man. Give me Taylor Swift.
All I'm hoping for is a Miami Heat victory against those Celtics. We absolutely need it. And then I don't care about the Super Bowl as much. Let's just have a great game, an enjoyable day, and go from there. So on behalf of the Four Competitors podcast, Zachary, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, talking shop about the Miami Heat. We hope to have you back soon. Hopefully some playoff talk here in a few months. And D'Lo, Yadek, thanks for joining, of course. And we will see you guys on next episode for episode 12.